I'm John. I was blinded in a chemical explosion that left me blind for 30 years. I was given my sight back through a cornea transplant. All I had wanted was to see my children for the very first time. When they removed the bandages, I looked across the room, and sitting there was my family. I could see them.
You have the power to donate life. Be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. To find out how, go today to donatelife.net.
You turn on the television or you pick up a newspaper magazine, and all the information you see is just controlled by a handful of corporations. So how are you or I or any of us, how can we get our messages out to people? How can you tell people what you care about? You can go on Facebook and compete with hundreds of people who post things that may or may not be true. You can go on Twitter and post things with a handful of characters, because Twitter is really the place for literate people to hang out. Or you could go in with a sandwich board and walk the streets. You could write a letter to the editor. Or, even better, you could go to public access television. Public access serves your community on a first-come, first-served basis. And whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. It's first come, first served. Everyone in the community is welcome to come to public access and talk about not only the issues that are important to them, but if you have a poem to recite, a story to tell, a song to sing, just anything at all that's in your mind or a heart to tell, you come to public access. Public access in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I'm speaking right now, has been around since 1980, and I've seen it change events in Fayetteville. And the nice thing about public access now in the 21st century is that it's not just on a television channel, but it's also on the internet, so you can reach people around the world. So if you feel frustrated at not being able to talk to people, not being able to get your message out, and you think there's no way to do it, well, take heart. There is. Public access. It's a vital component of our First Amendment rights. So public access, like the man says, use it or lose it.
What's up? ¿Qué pasa, mis razas? Estás viendo el canal de la comunidad de la ciudad de Fayetteville, así que sintoniza, goza.
Hi, with us today are Patricia Mickelson and her son Chris Mickelson. How are you?
Doing good.
Fantastic.
Now, you both are volunteers of the group called 40 Days for Life. Now, what exactly is that?
Well, 40 Days for Life is a twice yearly campaign that we're volunteers for 40 days, do peaceful vigil, community outreach, and prayer and fasting for the purpose of ending abortion. And we do that locally in front of Planned Parenthood.
Okay, so it's not like a group gives itself 40 days to shut down Planned Parenthood.
No, not at all.
Okay.
We just keep going until it happens. And even some groups, when a group of an abortion clinic closes, they will still pray like in front of a courthouse or something, because really the goal is to shut down, to end abortion and to draw attention to it.
40 Days is an interesting name for a group. Why do you think they chose the name 40 Days?
Chris, why don't you talk about that?
I think that it definitely came from the Bible. I think they probably chose that 40 days because it's symbolic, and also it's a nice number. I feel like it's not too long, but it's not too short, because really it's about concentrated prayer. and really spending the time praying during those 40 days. And then the rest of the year, not that you slack off or anything, but you really spend the 40 days just concentrated.
Yeah, actually, the people who started it, they were 4 people. They were just a little discouraged with the pro-life activity in their town of College Station, Texas.
Right.
Yes, and so then when they prayed for that hour, what can we do? They came up with the 40 days idea.
Now, which facilities have you all prayed outside?
Well, we have just been outside of the Planned Parenthood. We, which first it was on Township, and now it's on Crossover. We actually, I learned about it right after the clinic closed. Dr. Harrison's clinic closed. So right after that, that's when we started.
Okay. Okay. Doesn't your group also get involved in prayer and fasting, or?
Yes, prayer and fasting is very important.
I understand fasting has a rather more elastic term than once did.
Yes, it does. They're not trying to be rigid about it. For example, actually, the first 40 days for Life people, a couple of them, they did bread and water. They just fasted on bread and water. But others aren't so strong. So people just choose something that will help them get in touch with it's kind of a sacrifice. So it helps them get in touch with God. So
some people choose coffee, maybe sweets, sugar, something.
So, like when we were a kid, they say give up something for Lent?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it actually happens I mean, during the Lent season. Yeah,
So how much community outreach do you do?
You know, our group does not do a huge amount of community outreach because it seems like we don't have as many people as we could. But we do go. What do they do for community outreach? Have we done much?
what do you mean by community outreach?
How do you reach out to people?
Usually it's finding the thought leaders in different groups and sort of inspiring them. For example, me and my mom are sort of the initiators in our church.
Yeah.
And so we get people involved and we encourage them to come. And I think that's one of 40 Days for Life strategies, is to sort of get people to get their groups.
But in terms of reaching out to also just like the general public, one of the things that we would like to do is go door to door and do a petition drive.
Yeah.
But like I said, that's been on the weekend. Our group in Fayetteville has not been as strong as other groups.
So what kind of petition would it be?
You know, somebody mentioned that petition, and I'm not sure what it is.
It's always good to know what the petition would be before you start going door to door.
You're right. I assumed it would be something good, but I'm not sure. Thanks for pointing that out to me, Richard. That is good advice.
Only about 1% of the population of the United States actually describes themselves as pro-life.
1%? Really? My research tells me that over 50%.
Over 50%?
Yeah. So
I mean, strongly pro-life.
How do you define strongly pro-life?
I know, these are the figures I read
Okay.
last night.
Well, I think that's a really good point, though, because a lot of pro-life people are very quiet. And so strong activists, that may be a correct word, is 1%. Because, we weren't active in the pro-life movement as a family until 5 years ago when we got involved with 40 Days for Life. And that was because most of the most of the pro-life people were so violent and so just obnoxious. And we didn't really have examples of how to be pro-life in a peaceful way.
Yeah, we heard stories about people in Grim Reaper costumes and people outside the abortion clinics writing down license plate numbers, and we just didn't want to get involved. But when we heard about 40 Days for Life and we saw that they were peaceful, that they were concentrated on prayer and fasting and really speaking out against pro-lifers who weren't being kind, really weren't showing and exemplifying good behaviors, really. So that's one of the reasons we got
Isn't there some
involved.
disagreement also within what you call the pro-life community? Not only, I guess, starting with when life actually begins.
Well, there's not disagreement in the pro-life community about that. I mean, anyone who calls themselves pro-life, I mean, that the general definition is that life begins at conception. So I'm a little confused by your question. That there might be confusion within the pro-life.
Or how long the fetus develops inside the mother. Because, you know, I mean, twins don't develop until sometime afterwards. I learned this in biology class in school, but I didn't relearn it until last night. So it's not like at the moment of conception suddenly you've created twins or triplets, because you haven't, because they come later on from this.
You're saying that they split
Yes.
into the twins.
Well, Christopher, would you like to address that?
The question about which
When
question?
life begins?
When life begins? Yeah, you know, it's been a scientifically proved fact that, I mean, there is some sort of, it is life. Life does begin, whether it's the twins turning into or splitting off into two. I mean, I guess I'd have to study I haven't really looked into
the
twins.
best description I read last night was about the whole conception thing. It's not, it's a process and not a distinct starting point.
Well, you see, the problem with deciding when human life begins, it is a continuum. Because if you start deciding, well, it's 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, I mean, the heartbeat starts, I believe it's 8 days. You know, limbs start, I mean, don't quote me on that. I'm terrible at memorizing these things. But all my research shows that even at 21 days, you can see, before somebody even knows that they're pregnant, you can start seeing a shape in there. So we cannot determine when consciousness starts. We as pro-lifers do not want to determine when does human life, when can we end it, when, you know, we don't want to make that decision.
And there's also this acronym that I learned called, it's SLED, it's size, level of development, environment, and dependency, degree of dependency. So really that's just a difference between the size. I mean, we're talking, there's a difference between a 3-week-old baby and a 1-year-old baby, and it's just, that's the size. And environment, if you take the baby and you put the baby in another place, it's still the same baby. And dependency, when you talk about a 1-week-old baby, the dependency is different than a 3-year-old child.
Right, because a 3-week-old fetus cannot survive on its own.
Right. Well, a day-old baby cannot survive on its own. I mean, if you just left it out in the street, if you left the baby out in the street, it's not going to survive. It needs its mother.
Speaking of mothers, and a lot of this has to come down to we have to say the rights of women.
Yes, you know, I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing that we want to make very clear is that we very much care about women who have had abortions. We care about the people who work in the clinics. We care about the doctors. You know, that is something I loved about 40 Days for Life. In fact, I just emailed one of the leaders who was there praying in front of Dr. Harrison's clinic, and she saw him when he was sick. They knew he was sick, and she told me about how they were really just praying for him and his health. They were also praying for the welfare of the women going in there because he didn't look like he was real strong and alert. But, you know, when it comes down to the rights of women, that is, that comes down to the philosophical point of a child is actually separate from the woman. It's a separate entity with a separate DNA. And so the woman, although she has a right, the baby has a right too. So we like to think of a baby's right.
Of course, we're talking, I mean, at your side of the table, you're saying baby. At my end of the table, the word fetus is coming out. So.
Oh, pardon me? You're calling it fetus?
Yes.
Right.
So maybe there's some lack of agreement there. But you've written on about rape and abortion, rape and incest.
Yeah, I don't know if I wrote a lot about it, but I sure did do some research.
Okay. Oh, that was your blog I was reading on last night.
Yeah, it was, you know what? I want to tell you, Richard, you have been an inspiration to us because once we knew that we were going to be on this show, we knew that we had to be really articulate. Once I issued the challenge, we want to close Planned Parenthood, we knew we've got to have some good reasons. You know, you can be in a group and go, yeah, I know that, but once you have to be talking about it on television, it gets serious. So I did a ton of research, and I think I put about 50 blog posts on since then. So
I read a bunch of your blogs yesterday.
Yeah, thank you. And the whole issue of rape and incest, that is, I mean, mostly what I am doing is going to articles that are very well written, but I remember so clearly that argument, and that is that, first of all, studies have shown that when women who have been raped have an abortion on top of it, they have even more psychological wounds.
Now we're talking about something called post-abortion traumatic stress syndrome, right?
Yeah,
which is not actually recognized by the American Psychological Association or the American Psychiatric Association.
You know, another question about the. So you're kind of saying that if a woman is raped, she shouldn't have to
carry this reminder.
Right, carry the
of an evil man.
Right,
who put her through one of the most traumatic experiences she'd ever have.
Right, right. Well, you know, we always say that the rapist should, of course, be punished to the full extent of the law, of course. The question comes up, though, is should the baby, I guess, or the fetus, if you, the life, should a child be punished for her or his or her, should they be punished for their father's crime? I guess that's kind of the question. And so there's been stories of people who have kept their baby after they were raped, and they said, should I not exist? Should I have been terminated because my father was an evil man? And doesn't make the baby evil.
Yeah, there's really great stories about people who have been conceived in rape and how one mother said to her, I think she gave the daughter up for adoption, and when she met her daughter, she said, "You're the best thing that ever happened to me." So there's a lot of studies that show, and you know, I mean, I want to address your question about that there's nothing that says post-traumatic stress syndrome or
post-abortion traumatic stress syndrome.
Yeah, I don't know if that's an actual word I've ever heard. I have heard
I came across it many times.
Oh, okay. But definitely post-abortive distress is something that
it's recognized because they have a lot of counseling services.
Yeah. I don't know if I totally trust all those labels anyway, because the drug companies make them up so that they can give them, make up drugs to heal them. So maybe they leave some out because they don't, it may discourage.
That's a lot of hypothetical.
Yeah, that's hypothetical.
There's probably, well, granted, a certain percentage of women regret having the abortion. Then you had a certain percentage of women who regret not having the abortion. And then
Well, I don't know the studies on that. How many women would actually, a woman who has a baby, if they have an unwanted pregnancy, they really, and I know, and I will admit, pro-life people have done a very poor job of publicizing that women have a lot of options. So we want women to know that, and I'm so glad we can share this on your show, that there are many crisis pregnancy centers in Northwest Arkansas, including our wonderful Loving Choices, which we've helped raise money for and attended their banquets. And so women don't have, I mean, just to carry a child to term, of course, we're always going to be referring to a baby in the womb as a child.
Right.
That's why we're pro-life. So to ask a woman to carry a child to term and then give it up for adoption, we don't think it's that much to ask, especially when all the services are offered for free. And, you know, the only thing you're going to suffer is getting, you know, you're bigger. And actually, some people, a lot of pregnant women actually enjoy that period.
I know. This is a poor analogy, but look, I'm just moving my cup from one end of the end of the table to the other. Now, if that's all we were asking a woman to do, that might be all right. But we're asking a woman to serve as an incubator for 9 months after a traumatic experience from either through rape or incest. And I know women who really want kids, so they're still bitching like crazy over the fact they were pregnant, over the pain involved and discomfort.
Yeah, sure.
Did you come across any studies about how many, because I feel like I've read this, how many women who are raped, like how many abortions come from women being raped or in incest?
No, I didn't see those numbers.
Because I think they're really low. And I feel like that's one of the main, I feel like most of I can't pull anything off the top of my head, but the idea that that those is common. Like, well, usually it's less common.
Of course, rape being one of the most underreported crimes in America, and incest being super underreported. I mean,
well,
mostly with incest, you have the baby, and then you have the more and more inbreeding in your family.
Well, you know, that brings up the topic of with Planned Parenthood, how they actually will. There's been undercover operations with Lila Rose of Live Action. She started when she was 16, going and doing this kind of work, and she has an organization now that exposes Planned Parenthood and how they're actually, you know, you talk about rape. We're talking about pimps coming in with their prostitutes, sex trafficking type situations, and Planned Parenthood actually gives them information like, come in and, you know, we won't say anything, and if just do this so that we can make sure you don't get into trouble.
Any
you know,
organization that would work with human traffickers should be shut down. Are you saying Planned Parenthood as a whole, or just individual offices?
Well, the thing is that they have a number of undercover. This was a one-time thing at this one place, but then they have so many other things that they are doing that are really not pro-women. I mean, people who are pro-life, maybe even pro-choice people, all they want to do is let's say give counseling, say Planned Parenthood, give counseling to the women that tells them all about abortion and what it really does, and, you know, show them a ultrasound and explain to them everything about it. Well, Planned Parenthood uses their taxpayer money to lobby and against simple laws like that. That's just an example of how Planned Parenthood is really not pro-women. They're not pro-choice.
If we get back to the point about women carrying the baby to term, I'd be super uncomfortable with telling a woman, you have to do this, which is occasionally, if we banned abortion, that's what, or she would have to seek. It would be go back to a pre-1973 world. But I'd be really uncomfortable with saying to a woman who'd been traumatized, this is what you're going to do, because this makes us owners of her.
So are you saying that only a woman who's been traumatized, I mean, are you saying that they're the ones we should protect, or are you talking about other women as well? Would you feel uncomfortable about telling a woman who just didn't feel like she wanted the baby just because she just doesn't want the trouble? Are you making those equal?
I mean, obviously, see, I'm not a counselor, so this is something a woman would have to talk to her counselor about, why she doesn't want the baby. So she goes and says, I don't want the baby because it's not worth the trouble. This is something she has to talk to the counselor about. So I'm not a counselor, so I just don't know. I can't answer that.
But I hear that, of course, you would feel uncomfortable telling a woman what to do with her body.
You will do this. You will carry this baby.
Right, and you would feel uncomfortable, and the reason is because you don't believe that a child is there's a child in there that has feelings and that is a human life. Because if you did believe that, you would feel comfortable. Like you would feel comfortable telling a woman who had a 3-year-old, no, you cannot kill that 3-year-old.
I believe at a certain point in the womb that the fetus becomes a child, yes.
Okay, when do you think that?
You know what, and now I keep that figures out of the top of my head. I know we make a big deal about abortions in the last trimester, which are about as common as meteors hitting the Empire State Building. But there's been a lot of that in the news about people wanting to ban that, which rarely happens except in cases of the mother's health. But as a general rule, I would be opposed to that, unless it was the mother's health that was at stake.
Okay. So what about these babies that can feel pain? There's a lot of scientific evidence that shows that at 20 weeks they can feel pain. And these little babies, the abortion procedure is to actually dismember them.
And so there are people in the audience going, well, people have been telling me my plants feel pain, which is not to sound callous, but that's people would counter with that argument,
But plants really, they're not human, right? I mean, we look. I guess the question is we look around us and we see people, right? We see people, different sizes, different shapes, colors, all that. And I guess the question is what makes a human a human?
I think that's a sticking point for us. I'm not sure I think we can spend the next 15 minutes arguing about that point, or perhaps we should move on.
Probably, but I appreciate, I want to bring up that I'm glad we had this calm conversation, because something that I have been wanting and something I'm passionate about is for pro-choice people and pro-life people to have calm dialogue, because in the past it's been too much that pro-life people have been trained to, like, I have this argument and this argument, and they're not listening.
I think that's the way society trains people now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and so I really appreciate.
It's the television culture.
I just want you to know I really appreciate that you invited us on, knowing that we have different viewpoints and that we can have this calm discussion. And I really hope that more people will not be afraid to talk about abortion, because it is one of the. Don't you think it's one of the least talked about things?
No.
Really?
No. But you're writing me a check after the show, right?
It's to just end on this topic of because that is the sticking point, like you said, that's what the pro-life and the pro-choice, I guess, have been talking about for a long time, and I think that it makes the human, the fact that we're human is just like a certain humanness about us, like, because you're either a human or you're not a human, right? And there's something about that we value humans, and we value their right to life, no matter whether they're short or they're tall or their skin color is different. So
yeah, but eventually you have to get to the point where you say, do you want to tell a woman you will do this?
Right.
And
I would. I would, just like I would say to a woman.
Maybe we could put them in special homes where Irish nuns could take care of them.
Well, you know what? It was really a beautiful thing because we are talking a little bit about 40 Days for Life, and there was a young woman who had a crisis pregnancy, and they put out the word. We have a mailing list. I guess that would be a way of finding how many members we have, how many people are on our mailing list. But anyway, they sent out the word that and said, this young woman needs a place to stay while she's pregnant. We had about 10 people volunteer, including one teenager who said that she would give up her room. And you know, there's an increasing amount of pro-life people who are totally willing to take care of the mother. And the crisis pregnancies will do that. And the interesting contrast between Planned Parenthood and crisis pregnancy centers are that crisis pregnancy centers are totally nonprofit, non-government funded. They just make money from their fundraisers and stuff, whereas Planned Parenthood is a billion-dollar operation that makes most of their money from abortion.
Right. Now, of course, Planned Parenthood doesn't just make their money from abortions.
Right, but they...
Because they also provide birth control services, breast and cervical cancer tests, STD testing, urinary tract and yeast infection.
You talking about mammograms with that one of those?
I don't know. I don't know. I guess
breast testing. Yeah. Well, yes, they do offer other services for sure, but it was really great. Over this past week, I decided I am going to do some in-depth. I'm going to do an in-depth focus on Planned Parenthood, and what I discovered is that I do have some percentages here. 63 out of 800 Planned Parenthood facilities provide the option of prenatal care. 321 provide abortion. All refer for abortion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's not 100% abortion that they're doing, but the problem is people like Abby Johnson, who left the abortion industry and now wrote the book Unplanned and is now one of the leading pro-life activists with her ministry helping abortion clinic workers getting out. But one of the reasons she got out was because Planned Parenthood was saying, we need to get more abortions. We need more of a percentage of our income from abortion until we have every Planned Parenthood affiliate provides abortion. And finally, I want to say that if you look on my my blog, prolifeorganizer.com, you will find that even a half an hour before I came here, I was researching. It's like all the evidence shows that Planned Parenthood has a product, their main product. I mean, there's no company that only has one product. Right. Their main product that they're making money from is abortion. And their main marketing strategy is things like giving abortion pills where a young teen has to take the same pill every day at the same time in order for it to have that 99% accuracy.
About birth control?
Huh?
Are we talking about birth control?
Yeah.
That's not an abortion pill.
No, but, no. But I'm saying, I'm sorry, the point is that, to ask a teen to take a pill same time every day, that's a lot to ask so that she will have not have an unwanted pregnancy.
It's like taking
the problem
taking a vitamin.
The problem is that they really.
How many people can even do that?
The problem is Planned Parenthood is very they promote, I guess for lack of a better word, is promiscuous sex. A lot of promiscuous sex, and then they say if you feel comfortable with your partner and they have a lot of stuff on there, and then like you said, you have to take this pill that you have to take every day at the same time, and I take vitamins, I do, but I don't take them at the same time every day. I mean, sometimes I take them in the morning, sometimes I don't take them at all.
How does Planned Parenthood or any abortion provider, anyone outside of Playboy magazine, how does anyone promote promiscuous sex?
Well, there's they do things like we looked over how they presented sexuality. And it's like there actually is proof that they promote hedonism. They promote the pleasure of sex. They hardly, but they're also promoting that it's okay. It doesn't have any emotional ramifications. It's just fun. It's outside of marriage, how many partners you have, what sex your partner is, whatever. They even describe really pretty kinky sexual ways of ways of having sex. Okay, kinky is a judgment. I'm sorry, but I think
we're
know
talking 50
it's
shades
like
of gray here.
they have. I mean, I did some studies. Their sex education is like really not promoting abstinence.
No, well, we could spend a whole show on abstinence.
Yeah.
I mean, abstinence-based sex education is proven to be one of the least trustworthy forms of sex education.
Actually,
you don't really teach kids anything about sex, or it's like.
Well, they definitely need to get better for sure.
No,
Yeah,
actually, what I've understood, what I read is that if you combine abstinence with how to have safe sex and birth control, it's actually the most effective. But see, Planned Parenthood, they are on the side of no abstinence. The only thing they talk about on their website is like one little page. Abstinence has to do with birth control. It's not even an option. I mean, okay, let me go back to a book that was really excellent. It's called Hooked, The New Science on How Casual Sex is Affecting Our Children. So Planned Parenthood, beyond a shadow of a doubt, you can go and look at my website, look at their website. They are encouraging casual sex from every age, from at least 13, but I'm pretty sure 10, to college. And so this book...
And not beyond college?
Huh?
Not beyond college?
Well, their market after college, I don't know, maybe, but...
They do target a lot of college.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing for older than college. But anyway...
It's like, I think when you're that age, it doesn't really take much to promote sex. If you're a guy, a windy day promotes sex. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure what Planned Parenthood's doing to promote sex, really. If we're talking about people come in contact with a website and all of a sudden want to run out to an orgy.
Well, that's a good point, Richard.
I mean, really, our society has just become... Planned Parenthood is like a product of society in a way, because I feel like our society is becoming more sexualized all the time.
But there are more and more books that are being written. Like I said, The Hooked, New Science on How Casual Sex is Affecting Our Children. There's another book called Hooking Up by a pretty liberal author. She did a study on college students, and hooking up now is just like having sex and just one-night stands and just really, really casual. And the studies are showing that it's really, marriages are much less successful if people have had sex before, even if they've had sex before marriage with that same partner. They're showing that there's a bonding that takes place, the first scientific proof. When you have sex with your first partner, there's a bonding that takes place that is made for that one lifetime being with that person. And each time you have sex, it's like tape. It takes off the stickiness, and then pretty soon, sex is just casual. Well, and it's not good psychologically.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but there was no spiritual bond between me and. We'll just drop it there. But there was no spiritual bond between me and my first partner.
But kind of going back to, I guess,
I didn't say spiritual.
With Planned Parenthood, I mean, we can talk all about, trying to think of the word that we were just trying to...
Encouraging promiscuity?
Yeah, and that's really a big thing that Planned Parenthood, I guess,
Where are
does.
parents?
What?
Where are parents in this equation?
Well, I think that is a fantastic question. Since we're wanting to shut Planned Parenthood, I mean, want them to close. We're not physically going to shut them down. But, you know, there were some undercover exposures where it showed that Planned Parenthood is actually encouraging people to lie about their age so they don't have to tell their parents. And even on their website, I noticed somebody asking the question, do I have to tell my parents? And I think Planned Parenthood is not exactly encouraging parent involvement, but parents do need to be more involved. And there are, there's more and more organizations that are encouraging parents, talk to your children about sex. You know, we are very fortunate to have children that I was promiscuous when I was starting at the age of 18. And I knew that I did not want, I had at least 10 partners before I was 20. And I counted them, like, I was really proud of that. I was proud of my affair with my, you know, my professor at school who was married. But you know what? That damaged me. And I have 2 former husbands who were really good friends, but I believe it affected my marriage. Just recently, I realized I was addicted to sex, and I had to do a lot of emotional cleansing. So what happened was, because I knew of my difficult situation, I did not want that for my children.
Yeah.
And so we have had conversations, and we have raised them in an environment of other young people that encourage waiting, encourage chastity, encourage having sex only within marriage. And these kids are so happy and good friends, and they're just having, some of them are getting married and they're virgins. They have these big weddings. The first time they kiss is when at the wedding. You know,
The first time they kiss is at the wedding?
Yeah, that's, some people are that extreme.
You're not marrying into the Duggars, are they?
No, but you know what? I just, a half an hour before I came here, I actually came across a website, and it was, and it's all about waiting. That's what they call themselves, waiters. And they're people of
Waiters?
all, I think waiters, W-A-I-T-E-R, waiters. And what they do is they wait to have sex before they're married. And they're people of all religions, all sexual orientations, and races, and they're proud of it, and they're just having, you know, and parents, I think, really need to encourage this and encourage a trust so that their kids can talk to them about sex.
No.
That was long.
I
am so sorry.
In a snippet, yes, parents are important.
What do you think, Chris?
Parents are important. They should be there. They should be talking to their kids, and they should be educating them about sex and also what abortion really is. And I think that's one of the problems, is that people haven't really been talking about the full, really giving all the information about abortion.
Of course, we have fewer abortions now than ever before.
Yeah, you know what? The good news is, since we've been praying in front of Planned Parenthood, because the first 40 Days for Life started at Dr. Harrison's.
So you're taking the credit for this, or what?
Yeah. No, actually,
well,
I
she's
saw.
Just saying over the time period.
I have seen. I saw the statistics. I saw a graph, and the graph was, it was kind of up and down and up and down and up and down, and then the last 5 years, it's definitely going down.
I read it because a lot more people are using birth control.
Well,
and
I guess
Planned
we can't
Parenthoods have been closing too.
But then you have other, it's not just Planned Parenthood, you have other providers across the country too. So
of abortion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, and the reason that we're focusing on Planned Parenthood is because of Planned Parenthood, we do have, that's what we have.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they're the largest.
They're the largest abortion providers in the world. And so if Planned Parenthood could close down, if that international organization, I mean, could close down, then we'd be pretty happy. But you know what the good news is? We care about those workers. And Abby Johnson has started this organization called And Then There Were None, and she has inspired 101 abortion workers to get out of that field. And her organization will provide a month's worth of wages, counseling, help with getting another job. So we do care about these abortion workers and in Planned Parenthood. We're not like going, oh, we hate them, we don't want them to have jobs. They're people. They're doing the best they can. We all rationalize things that we do that aren't right.
It's interesting about the abortion workers that have quit, though, because they have to sign a document that says, I will not talk about I will not reveal anything that has been going on.
Have you had many jobs in industry?
Oh, well, yeah,
That's
but
pretty standard.
the thing is that
you know, non-disclosure form, yeah.
Yeah, a disclosure form, but when you're talking about, I mean, well, I just think it's interesting that they didn't get their last paycheck, you know.
Oh, that was the one, Sue Thayer.
Well, Sue Thayer, yeah. The directors.
Sue Thayer was the specific example.
Yeah. Okay,
She was actually really against this abortion in the drawer. Okay, my memory is failing. However, Sue Thayer was one of the many whistleblowers. There's been at least, let's see, I counted 1, 2, 3, 4
directors.
4 former employees have filed separate lawsuits against them, and there's 2 books been written, one by Ramona Trevino and Abby Johnson. You know, so there's a lot of abortion workers that are coming out and whistleblowers. You know, they're concerned about what Planned Parenthood is doing.
And then a lot are still dedicated to their work. I guess for me, it will always come down to, I don't want me or society to say to a woman, you will be a prisoner of the state, which is what we would be saying to her. You will be a prisoner of the state. You can say a ward of the state if you want to, but I don't want our society to revert to like Ireland in the 1950s and say, you will be a prisoner of the state and you will have this baby.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you perceive that when a woman is pregnant, that if there is a law against abortion, she would be a prisoner of the state.
Well, I think just as pre-1973, women will still find a way to have abortions. But I think if we're telling a woman who really does not want to have this child for whatever reason, you will have this child, yeah, we are essentially making her a prisoner of the state, a prisoner of conscience, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that we need to go back to the point, when does life start? So if I believe that, and science proves very clearly that life does begin at and you're, you know, not quite sure when you would want that woman
well, I know,
to
see,
terminate.
they're still debating this in various state legislatures across the country too. When does life begin? Because they want to put it into law, you know. So.
Right, and so if I sincerely believe that a human life begins at conception, then for me to say you don't have to carry this baby to term, I don't want to make a law against that. That would be similar to me saying I don't want to make a law against killing like a 3-year-old.
Right.
So for my conscience, I need to be promoting that law. For your conscience, if you truly believe that that is not a baby, a human being, then by all means, you keep going for, you know, what you believe as your conscience, because as your conscience states, because that's what we really believe in, freedom.
I know, I appreciate that. Speaking of killing things, my director is off his medication. He's waving a fire axe around. He's trying to tell us that our time is up for today. So, anyway, I want to thank you very much for being on the show.
And thank you, Richard,
thank
very
you.
much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for a good dialogue.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week. Now.
I'm John. I was blinded in a chemical explosion that left me blind for 30 years. I was given my sight back through a cornea transplant. All I had wanted was to see my children for the very first time. When they removed the bandages, I looked across the room, and sitting there was my family. I could see them.
You have the power to donate life. Be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. To find out how, go today to donatelife.net.
You turn on the television or you pick up a newspaper magazine, and all the information you see is just controlled by a handful of corporations. So how are you or I or any of us, how can we get our messages out to people? How can you tell people what you care about? You can go on Facebook and compete with hundreds of people who post things that may or may not be true. You can go on Twitter and post things with a handful of characters, because Twitter is really the place for literate people to hang out. Or you could go in with a sandwich board and walk the streets. You could write a letter to the editor. Or, even better, you could go to public access television. Public access serves your community on a first-come, first-served basis. And whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. It's first come, first served. Everyone in the community is welcome to come to public access and talk about not only the issues that are important to them, but if you have a poem to recite, a story to tell, a song to sing, just anything at all that's in your mind or heart to tell, you come to public access. Public access in Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I'm speaking right now, has been around since 1980, and I've seen it change events in Fayetteville. And the nice thing about public access now in the 21st century is that it's not just on a television channel, but it's also on the internet, so you can reach people around the world. So if you feel frustrated at not being able to talk to people, not being able to get your message out, and you think there's no way to do it, well, take heart, there is. Public access, it's a vital component of our First Amendment rights. So public access, like the man says, use it or lose it.
What's up? ¿Qué pasa, mis razas? Estás viendo el canal de la comunidad de la ciudad de Fayetteville, así que sintoniza, goza.
You know, sometimes those relationships happen like with that last song, but sometimes they happen a little differently. When I met my current girlfriend, we did not even like each other. We couldn't stand each other. I thought that she was an icky political bitch, and she thought that I was a puppet of the feminist bourgeoisie. We have did you not know that story? We have both agreed since then that we were both right. And we took about a year and a half to get to know each other and mellow out and fall in love. And just about 3 weeks ago, we celebrated our 17th anniversary. So this next song is a different kind of love song than that last one, which was, I think of the last one as a love song, but it's a different one. But this one is a positive, upbeat kind of love song, but it's not one you're going to hear on Austin City Limits, for sure.
Much to my mother's chagrin. That's her dream for me, is to be on Austin City Limits. But we use the L word entirely too much in our music, and we haven't been invited.
I'm sure my mother's never even heard of Austin City Limits. You are my lover, you are my soul sister. Else how could we have come this far? You like no other love me so durably. Buena compañera, you are. The goddess in me embraces the goddess in thee. May we blessed be of change. We're creating the trust and the strength that will fuel our climb. The goddess in me has need of the goddess in thee. May we blessed be, glowing with energy. Love has the answers, the questions, the pleasures. It traps us in quicksand or we slide away. We are the dancers, the diggers, the treasures. Together we'll find what we need today. The goddess in me inspires the goddess in thee. May we blessed be, exploring with energy. The goddess in me embraces the goddess in thee. May we blessed be, loving with energy.
I'm John. I was blinded in a chemical explosion that left me blind for 30 years. I was given my sight back through a cornea transplant. All I had wanted was to see my children for the very first time. When they removed the bandages, I looked across the room, and sitting there was my family. I could see them.
You have the power to donate life. Be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. To find out how, go today to donatelife.net.
What's up? ¿Qué pasa, mis razas? Estás viendo el canal de la comunidad de la ciudad de Fayetteville, así que sintoniza, goza.
Politics in general and jobs that don't pay enough, 40-hour work weeks, books full of boring stuff, schools that should teach but kids don't learn a thing. These are a few of my least favorite things. Healthcare that won't heal and how people treat the earth, paying tolls and taxes, disbelief in self-worth, bitter cold winters that cut into spring. These are a few of my least favorite things. Religions that claim they're true, don't get me started. Standards that double and people cold-hearted. Judgment and bias when freedom don't ring. These are a few of my least favorite things. All the lying, all the killing. When I'm depressed and sad, I add that to all of my least favorite things, and then I feel really bad. Feel like Julie Andrews or something.